The music will be playing in the background at this point, mate. And we've already been chatting for 10 minutes. So, Harry Bailey, formally, welcome to the studio. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Liverpool. Does this sound familiar? So apparently you are a delivery coach for teams, you're a mentor, and you're a certified agile coach with over 2 decades of experience as a strategist, agency owner, agile coach, and software developer. You've worked at the intersection of technology, business, and creative problem solving, from building solutions in the trenches of software development to scaling digital agencies. Impressive, mate. You've lived through every challenge agency leaders face and found ways to... I'd hire you, mate.
Every challenge. I might have to rewrite that. Nearly every challenge.
Is that a fair summary? Hopefully, because you wrote it, I think.
I think it probably is a fair summary, yeah. I mean, I'm getting on a bit now. I'm past my my middle of my life. I'm now going down the other side of the hill. So
Jesus.
So I would hope by this point I would know what I'm talking about. And yeah, I think that does summarize it quite well. I've done a lot of stuff.
Sounds like it, which we will dig into. So I don't know if you know this. If people are frequent or semi-frequent posters on LinkedIn, I'll usually have a quick scroll and see what piques my interest and see that, dive into the meaning behind it. So these are from your fingers. Putting people to work on the same project doesn't make them a team. What you'll get by default is something very different, put my teeth back in. Individuals thinking about their own success metrics, leaders guiding each team member's solo chunks of work, progress showcased by the doer in return of praise, handovers between specialisms, not shared working. To get all the benefits of a team, there has to be a different approach, alignment around a shared vision, buy-in on approach and potential, team-level success metrics, we, not I language with stakeholders, team commitment to progress, multi-discipline working sessions. Individuals will get the work done, but with lots of individual thinking, which means more rework and less value created. Build a team.
Build a team.
What triggered that? What was on your mind when you were writing that post?
So a lot of my work is with agencies, not with product houses, and that I believe is a very different environment to be doing agile, inverted commas. And so what you'll find is that there are lots of individuals put together to create teams specifically for a project.
Yeah.
Now, in agency world, projects may be weeks, it may be a small number of months, can be a lot longer than that, but you generally find that teams are put together to get a problem solved, and then they dissipate, and then they're put into another team, or they might even be in multiple teams at the same time. They're not just going to be working on one thing in an agency. It's very rare. And so what you find is exactly that. The bit that is consistent for an individual within an agency is their specialism or their team of specialists that they work with. So, for example, a designer will work with the same designers. They'll have a line manager who usually is a designer. But when they're put into a multidisciplinary team, a team for the project, there might be people that they haven't worked with before, or they haven't worked with recently, or they don't get on with particularly well. But there isn't always an active decision to create a team at that point. You're actually putting people together and saying, here's the project, here's the client, here's the work, but not do this together. It's more like, this is the bit of it that you will need to be doing.
Yeah.
And so I guess that post was triggered from that experience, insight, that there isn't intention when it comes to forming teams within agencies often.
Again, coming from a place of naivety, what should happen then? Because I'm assuming the customer won't want to pay for that time to build the team. So how does that work, or how should it work in your mind if you ruled the world?
So I believe strongly that it's not just about building the team within the agency. It's about building the team including the client, including the stakeholders. And so in my world, I defined that as alignment. Like you align around the client, around their organization and their challenges and their needs. Why are they spending money on this problem? Why are they here? Why now? What would good look like? What are they expecting out of this? Can we achieve it? How do we achieve it? Do they agree that what we recommend is the right solution? So the first stage of any project should be alignment. And sometimes you see people doing things like Jeff Patton user story mapping or Post-it notes all over the walls and whatever. And that kind of get in a room digitally or physically, hash it all out, ask the questions, highlight the risks, understand why the thing is important, and then get on board with that as an individual or as a team, you'll get far better results from the investment or from the time that's available if you're all walking in the same direction and understand the bigger vision, the grander vision than just a list of requirements.
Cool. And rewinding slightly, loads of experience, we joke, but you obviously have. Your summary or what you've written on LinkedIn displays that. What's the high level helicopter view comic book strip journey to, where you are in your life now from a career point of view?
So I failed my A-levels and went to university to do a degree that I didn't necessarily want to do. It was actually called production line management, but a very small piece of it was web design.
Okay.
And this was back when it was like early web design, like basic HTML forms and inline CSS and all that kind of stuff. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed putting things together and making them available online. So I kind of went down that path and taught myself PHP quite early and freelanced, found other people who were interested in similar things. And we formed a team, I guess, at the time, a team of freelancers, and I started an agency, and that grew. Software as a service stuff, but mainly client-based agency work. And the more I did that, the more I realized the bit I enjoyed was where people meet technology, like that translation requirement between I need a thing and the other people going, we use ones and zeros, and then getting them in a room and having that conversation where everybody then starts talking the same language and get excited about the same thing, even though they came at it from very different angles.
Yeah.
And so training people, coaching people, mentoring people, but trained myself and obviously got qualified. Now, I don't always see qualification as then I will then do that thing. I see qualification as more like I understand more about that thing and I know when not to use it as much as when to use it. So for me, kind of training as an agile coach was as much about seeing somebody else's point of view about agile and understanding how they would then teach it so that I can then kind of benefit from that. So I stepped back from the agencies and went into kind of the coaching, mentoring side of things, and very much about human beings and body language and how teams interact and those kind of things. That's what drives me really is the humans. It's just that my background is definitely technology, so that comes together quite nicely.
Is that an easier sell when you're going into like a development team, and you've got that what one could describe as a more technical background? Do you find that the developers are more open to listening to you because you've got that context?
There's a bit of Trojan horse about it. There's a bit of going in, talking the language of the team, building their trust. And although you may not be getting paid by them, ultimately you're responsible to them. Right? Yeah. If the devs or the agency team, the delivery team took a day off, right, nothing gets done. But ultimately, they don't pay your wages. Like they're the ones creating the value, and they're the ones who need to be really kind of like encouraged and supported and given the tools. But there is a responsibility to those people who are saying, but this is what we are hiring you for, or this is what we need, the change we need to see, or this is how we'll know that you're succeeding here. So yeah, often my work starts with the delivery team and I'm only reporting back rather than being told what needs to happen by the managers and then going and telling the team. Like it's a very different approach to
Yeah.
One is management, one is coaching and mentoring.
Which do you prefer?
Oh, I really struggle with management. I think management for me is about setting expectations. It's about authority and not control. It's about setting expectations and the boundaries, but not defining the approach necessarily. And I think that's where a lot of people get Agile more broadly wrong, is that they both want to say what they expect and how it should be implemented or how it should be delivered. Yeah. Here is Agile. We are going to use it.
Yeah.
You must implement in its entirety this framework or this approach.
Yeah. What I'm about to ask isn't necessarily my opinion, but I know other people will be asking it if I'm putting myself in the shoes or the eyes of the watcher or listener. How does Agile work in agency land when one could argue they are projects and not product development? Because there's going to be a scope, time, project, deliver it, move on. And I imagine there could be a perception of, I've heard the term agile theatre for when we're using sprints, but essentially we're going through that very sequential waterfall process, which there's nothing wrong with before anyone says anything. But from an age, I'm sure people, and I'm interested in how does Agile work in that environment where you probably have got more of a fixed deadline and maybe fixed scope.
Yeah.
Is that unfair? Is that fair?
Yeah. Lashings and lashings of pragmatism.
Yeah.
One of my favourite recent conversations was with Kevin John Gallagher. I had an amazing chat with him because I was having a little wobble about what I was doing and why I was doing it, and I spoke to him, and he is just so pragmatic. He's so real about the challenges, and it aligned with me really well on my point of view, which is you can't tell everybody to do it in this way because it doesn't work in their context. And I wrote a blog post quite a while ago now, and it was along the lines of the agency delivery conundrum, or the agency project delivery conundrum. How do you deliver consistent success in projects when every client and every project is different, right? So you're not in a product house, you're not working on the same thing for 3 years, and you don't have goals that are at the business level in terms of like users or financials. It's at the project level. You have to succeed with every project, or at least the vast majority if you want your business to be successful. How does that come back to Agile? Well, I think that the Agile values and principles still work within the agency context. That is humans first, right? It's all about the people and the conversations. I think you have to align early on when it comes to who the people are you're working with. Every stakeholder is different. They're not just being judged on the project success, they're being judged on potentially their own success. Yeah. Knowing that is a superpower, understanding what for them success looks like is really important. Understanding how the team can enjoy the project, because why would you want every project to just be like a sausage machine, right? You want people to enjoy what they're doing. You want them to feel like they've had an impact on the world in some way. And so you need to bring that out. So once you've all aligned around this thing, how does the tactics of Agile work within an agency? Well, delivering value early and often is still absolutely valid, but you have to understand what value is. I don't know if you've read the book, The Art of Business Value.
No.
I always forget his last name. Is it Schwartz? Yes, Mark Schwartz, right? So The Art of Business Value.
Not the goalkeeper.
Possibly. So I was like, what even is value? I'm telling everybody that they have to deliver value, and value is really important. I often use just delight. Like delight for me is how many moments of delight can you get from a client during a project? If you see a moment of delight, mark it down, let the team know. They're kind of like a small wins channel in Slack where you're putting things in there. Like how many little moments of delight can we get? But I was like digging a hole when it comes to value. I was like, what even is value? So I went and read this book. And this book it's brilliant. He talks about all the ways that people define value and why value is important. And at the very end, spoiler alert, by the way, for anybody who hasn't read it or is reading it. Gets to the very end, he basically says, so business value is whatever the business values. right? So in every single business, that's likely to be different. And with every set of stakeholders, that's likely to be different. And it's your job to find that out. You can't just make an assumption and go, we need to deliver value.
Yeah.
People assume that's what's on the scope sheet, on the scope list, or on the requirements list. No. That's what they think is going to get them the value. You have to go back a step, understand why this project is even happening. Yeah. And I mean, really understand why, not because we want more users. It's like at the heart of it, what's going to make this thing successful? Especially with a new client, like you're going to want to impress them so that you can build that trusting relationship, and ultimately they'll give you a bit more choice about how. But to begin with, they come with all the answers, and you say yes sir, no sir, and you keep them happy, and maybe you get a few little opportunities to steer that ship. And then next time around, you might have built that relationship with that stakeholder or with that business, and you may be given more control, and then you can really delight them and really impress them, and ultimately you end up in a partnership rather than in a supplier-vendor relationship. And that's probably where the success really is to be found when it comes to agile approaches. Like you can't go in with a brand new client and go, this is how we do it.
No.
Jump on the agile ship. It's going to be fantastic. You're not going to get to choose anything right now, but along the way, we'll make some decisions. Like because the projects are so short, you don't really get that full-on agile experience of let's discover as we go, let's iterate, let's try stuff and find out. You don't get to do that in agency world.
And in agency land, there's a theme here. I think we've figured out the episode title. How does agile work in agency land? What does the team look like from do you have scrum masters, delivery managers, project managers, called like just delivery person, dog's body, like what? Because I can imagine a scrum master's a hard sell into a client if they don't understand it.
Yeah. All that and more. I don't think it matters. I genuinely, in defense of what I just said, I think the roles matter. I think that the caps that people put on matter. I don't think the names within agency land of those roles really matter. I think what you'll find often is that you might get an experienced designer or an experienced developer playing that kind of a role. Somebody who has an agile mindset, or at least wants the team to be agile and wants those kind of, let's do as little as possible that returns as much value as possible so that we've got a bit of time to iterate on that later, rather than let's do exactly what's on this list and give it them and expect them to say woo. So I think the roles play out often. I think where they don't, you're living in waterfall land, and that's not the end of the world. I mean, I think it's important in certain projects to make decisions up front. I think often aligning allows you to, if you align around the problem, you can probably in agency land come up with a lot of the solutions, a lot of the answers. Things don't change in business that quickly that in a 3-month project or in a 6-month project, it's going to be like, oh my God, everything's changed. Stop. We need to completely reimagine this project. So rare. People panic over this kind of let's discover as we go. But there isn't anything really to discover beyond what the business is bringing to you, what the client already knows, and getting to the heart of that why this thing is important. And then talking about what comes next, right? You're not going to get it all done. There's probably a deadline. There's probably a fixed budget. There's at least some bullet points of requirements, maybe not enough to do the whole thing. But you should always be talking about what comes next. And that's in part the agile opportunity is let's iterate on this. Let's do this little bit of it, see how that works. And then in 6 months, let's do another project, or in 3 months, let's do another project. Or you know what? Give you a 10% discount if you roll straight onto the next project after this.
Do you do things like sprint reviews and stuff in agency land? And is that a hard sell? Is that different for clients?
I think you have to, as an agency, iterate on your ways of working. And I think it depends on whether your teams are semi-static or you have a small agency where everybody ultimately knows each other well enough that they work together within a 3-month or 6-month period. But yes, inspect and adapt, iterative approaches to working, absolutely. Especially if you're working with a specific set of technologies, or you specialize within a certain sector of business or whatever that may be. It's not just about the sales, because there's certain things that you can always productize or automate or iterate upon. Like to not do that, to come at every project as though it's completely brand new and you've not learnt anything and you don't want to codify any of that would be pretty naive.
Yeah.
So yes, whether it fits into sprint cycles, not always, not for every team. Sometimes it's literally get this out the door as quickly as you possibly can. Don't spend half a day every week talking about it. Because if you have a clear enough vision of what it is and the client aligns with it and you know what you're doing, you don't need to stop and look around that often. It really comes down to the fidelity of that information that you've got.
Yeah. I like it. Hello folks, sorry to interrupt this video, but if you have got this far, it would really help if you did subscribe to the channel. Because it's face-to-face, it makes convincing people a lot easier to travel up all the way to Liverpool to record in this lovely studio. So, like I said, please subscribe and thanks for watching. So from your experience, what 3 things, if we were to call things, ingredients, do organizations or teams need to benefit from Agile? If you are, let's put you in the shoes of the client, not the agency. So you'll go into an agency for something. What do you think they need to get the benefits of what they're asking for?
Yeah, I think, okay, I was going to come at this from the other direction, but and it's worth mentioning psychological safety generally. I think that's key to any successful team. But in terms of the client's experience, I think communication. I think communication has to be consistent. It has to be at the right level for whatever the stakeholder needs. That is, they may only want occasional reports on progress, depending on the level of trust. They may want the kitchen sink at the end of every week, like what specifically have you done? Link me to the tickets and show me how you answered the problem. So communication, but that's all part of kind of alignment, stakeholder mapping, understanding who you're working with. Regular releases of value. And in client projects, that might not mean push a button and send it live, right? It might not be share it with the customer. It might not be press the big red button, but it does mean give the client regular insights into the thing that you're creating. So even that, if that is wireframes design, if it's high fidelity design, if it's functional requirements being returned, whatever, give them releases often. And then a good one is the ending. Like, agencies are awful at ending projects. And that's because a lot of changes are asked for, or changes. If you don't align around what the problem is, you're all going off and building your own vision of what that is, right? So you'll then end up in a situation where you think you've nailed it, and then the client's like, oh, Agile, huh? We'll come to it later, but now we've only got 3 weeks left and you're telling me I can't have it all. Well, what were you promising me at the start? So understanding within whatever your context is, however your agency works, understanding how to end projects really well. Some of that comes down to the client understanding that there should be a next thing. Software's living and breathing often. So what is going to come next, and when will it come next, and how will they afford it, and how will you justify it, and all those kind of conversations. But equally, when it's time to go live, like, what does that process look like? How do you get it out the door in a way where they feel like it's finished, like there's an end, where they can then go to their bosses and say, look, it was successful. You gave me the budget. I went and worked with this team. It was successful. Give me more money and I'll do it again, and I'll possibly work with the same team again. So give them the keys to then be able to justify more.
Cool. I'm pausing because it's just letting it land. It's interesting. I like it. outside of the agile bubble, and it could be, you could draw inspiration from anywhere. What should, in your opinion, where could people be focusing their time or learning from or getting insight from? Other industries, other spheres? Like where do you draw inspiration from apart from the agile bubble?
The agile bubble. See, I don't know whether there is a bubble. I think there's a few people in the bubble determined to protect the bubble. Just not convinced that it's like that. There's that everybody is so aligned that they can be in a bubble.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's a misshaped bubble.
It's definitely a misshaped bubble with a few arms and legs sticking out. But if it wasn't for that, where would I draw inspiration? Specifically for ways of working, for delivery?
Even like, companies that people may not have heard of, or, specific designers, or like some people coming in and say, I really like this specific architect. And
Okay.
that's influenced me in how I set up teams.
So I worked in a guest business incubator, but it was part of the co-op, and it was called Federation in Manchester. When COVID hit, it all, obviously nobody was going in, and therefore they stopped funding it, and it closed, which was sad times because there were a lot of really interesting people in there when it comes to doing impactful, genuinely interesting work. And one of the people who I met is a woman called Lauren Coleman, and she runs a social enterprise called Noisy Cricket. And I was lucky enough to be invited to be a non-exec for Lauren. I've worked with her quite a long time. So the beauty of what Lauren does, which is social impact causes, real nitty, challenging problems like returning homeless people into sustainable jobs. Not giving everybody a roof over the head, not sending them on some training, getting them into a job that they enjoy and can hold and are right for. Or tech ethics.
Yeah, like
and
proper work then.
Yeah, not tech ethics like let's have a diversity initiative for 3 months. I mean, like, why is it even a problem? Why does the problem exist? So the way that Lauren works and other people within service design areas is often co-creation or co-design. And again, it's not co-creation like you ask the people with the money what they want and you build the thing, but getting everybody around a table. Everybody, people who are impacted, people who support the people who are impacted, people who fund that kind of work, get them around the table and have a conversation where everybody is equal about what the right solution to that challenge is. And even then, you're still only inviting some people in. Like, you're not going to get everybody's answers, but at least you are broadly opening the conversation to everybody, not just the people who have the inverted commas power. And so I think I still learn a huge amount from her, because of that way of working is truly people first. It's the other side of the coin when it comes to a lot of what I do ultimately has to be successful commercially, not in this other world, not in this new ways of working, which is that, yes, you have to be successful when it comes to impact, sustainable impact, but it's all about not doing damage to people and putting people first. And I find that area fascinating. So if you're looking at how to bring people together and create amazing things, look for organizations, service design to some extent, but probably more the social side of that and the human beings and how to really bring everybody to the table and have those kind of conversations. Fascinate me, yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading a book at the moment called Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. Have you heard of him? He's part of the Ogilvy marketing agency. And it's definitely, the book is about rational and irrational thinking, and why as humans we don't always take, our behavior doesn't back up the logic. Which is a really good book. And he was sort of saying, I'm going to rip this apart, but forgive me. There was an experiment which they went with from charities who post, like, the envelopes that you put donations in through letterboxes, and they ran an experiment to see which one people would be more likely to put money in. So they tried, what's it called when you get the tax relief? When you give to charity.
Oh, what do you mean? Where you have to give your postcode to them?
Yeah. Doesn't matter. So there was that. So they made it very clear that you would get sort of tax benefits. They put posh paper. So they invested more money in the paper. They changed gift aid. That's the one. Cheers. They changed the letters or the envelopes from portrait to landscape. And they told people that volunteers were handing these envelopes out. They were the 4 sort of scenarios. Now, logically, the one that you could argue would have the most benefit is I'm going to get a bit of tax relief. That one did the worst. People put more cash in the envelope when they knew people were volunteering to give out the envelopes, which logically doesn't make sense from a selfish point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about thinking, what do these service users actually need rather than, the logical reason.
Yeah.
It's a really good book.
That's interesting because I guess if you asked people, they would probably give you the wrong answer.
Yeah.
They wouldn't necessarily give you the answer that bores out to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really interesting book because it's literally about, let's start thinking more irrationally.
Yeah.
And
try things.
Stop going down. Like he gives the example of sat-navs. He said sat-navs are great, but they don't understand context. It'll give you the fastest route, but I might want to go down the country lane because I like that specific services to go and get my, niche sandwich.
Yeah.
But the sat-nav just goes A to B quickest. Doesn't take into account irrational thinking and context. So to your point, getting the right people around who are actually using it and thinking a bit differently.
I remember, the card like Workshop Tactics and Storyteller Tactics. There's a whole set. Charles, he was saying in one of his posts that the way that he was marketing stuff, he was just trying off the wall things, and actually some of the things that worked the best were completely irrational when it comes to marketing and sales, which was fascinating. Like there has to be some space for experimentation, even where you strongly believe you have all the answers.
Yeah. Another example from this book, he's very heavy on Red Bull. Like it failed every taste test from a consumer point of view when they were trialing it, because it tastes shit, doesn't it? It tastes like cat piss. But people, we're not logical, are we? We don't like the taste, but it funds F1 teams.
Yeah.
It's horrible tasting drink.
Yeah.
Because we're illogical in our nature. But I don't know how we got there, but your point triggered the thought in my mind. Going back slightly, but if you were to summarize it in a couple of sentences, what is Agile to you?
What is Agile to me? Agile is the acknowledgement that we don't have all the answers when it comes to, this is just carrying on from where we were, don't have all the answers to ways of working. There are always opportunities for improvement, iteration. I think that comes both in terms of the ways of working, but your ways of being, your beliefs, your biases, and your conscious or unconscious biases would be central to it for me. I think the mindset, people talk about the Agile mindset, that's the bit that is non-negotiable when it comes to implementing Agile in terms of ways of working. I think everything else you can slowly integrate Agile ways of working into an organization, but if you don't have the mindset, the acknowledgement that you're not there yet, and you probably never will be, you're going to look for a quick fix, implement a framework, and then wonder why it doesn't work for you in your context. So that would be my one. The most important one is definitely that self-awareness and an awareness. you need enough of that within a team that it's at a tipping point, or within an organization that it's at a tipping point, that you're not just two people in a team of 10 trying to run agile ways of working while everybody else is just trying to tick boxes and run events like the Scrum events or whatever you choose to implement yourself.
I like it. Is there anything you've changed your mind about recently that you never thought you would? And you can keep it to a workplace scenario.
Yes. When I was first working with teams doing agile approaches, I was strongly of the opinion that you learn as you go. That is, you know nothing and you will learn. And even if somebody brings something to you, some user research or whatever, you don't take it and say, let's use this as fact. Let's implement this and then work out our journey from there. More recently, I think actually often we get obsessed with the idea that we don't know enough and we can only take small steps and then iterate and then learn. I think there are some teams where that is true. I think very few teams are lucky enough that they can take incredibly small steps, try things out, have a big enough user base that they can then get data points very quickly and then iterate on it. I think it often in not just in agencies but in product houses, the data that comes back doesn't come back quickly enough, or it comes back skewed so that actually you're really just making bad decisions in a different way. So the belief that has changed for me is the idea that you have to learn as you go. I think often you should accept data from multiple places that already exist. Often that comes from business and clients within agency land, but it may come from stakeholders or from other teams or from market research or whatever. And you build a case, you build a plan, and you can stick "this plan is wrong" above that plan in big writing if you want to, because often they are. But that's the agile mindset, right? Let's put a stake in the ground, choose a direction, head in that direction, and if we learn along the way, then we'll pivot, rather than take small steps, see if we can learn enough with our small step to then take another small step, because you just move so slowly that you're not creating the value that is promised by this agile approach in the first place. Like, make a plan. Acknowledge it's wrong, but it's better than no plan at all.
Yeah.
And I think I was of the belief that you mustn't make decisions. You mustn't let stakeholders make decisions. You take their information, but then you go on a journey together. I think I was a little bit naive many years ago about that, and more recently, I'm determined that the plan can be detailed and still be accurate enough.
Cool.
That's going to get some pushback.
Bring it on. I say that I'm not the one in the firing line there. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Sure.
I was cautious with my wording.
Sure. Sure. I imagine there'll be more people that agree with you than disagree with you.
Oh yeah.
I imagine.
Build a following.
We'll find out. What's next? What's on the forecast for you for the rest of the year or beyond?
I have submitted a couple of talks. I don't know whether they'll be accepted, but I'm gonna do a bit more talking. I'm gonna speak to groups of people in real life. I find being in a room with people quite empowering and quite. That's where the energy is, right? With human beings in a room, and there's always going to be a place for that. And hopefully that leads to some conversations, and then I might write a bit more. I feel like I've got enough to share that I'm gonna, keep writing and keep talking about it, and see if I can find those people with similar opinions, or at least who ask me interesting questions, and then I can continue with that. Podcasts, really grateful to be on this one. Thank you for inviting me.
I'll pay you later. Thanks for saying that.
And yeah, possibly other opportunities like that. I think when it comes to work, kind of honing my approach. I mean, I touched on alignment, but like aligning, defining, delivering, and then adapting to what you learn is very, very agilely, but with an agency spin. So I'll keep writing about that and hopefully get to try that out with more teams. And then you're working with teams. Every team is different. I love it because you never get two sets of needs and challenges and problems that are the same. There are overlaps, but there are very rarely identical setups. So yeah, experiencing that, I guess, when it comes to work.
Where can people reach out if you want them to? You don't have to answer that one, but
so at the moment, LinkedIn. I post occasionally on Blue Sky. Ditched the X for obvious reasons. So Blue Sky, I'm on there. LinkedIn, conversations on there. I hope to be part of more of those. So LinkedIn, Harry Bailey, obviously, Blue Sky, at harrybailey.com, and then my website, harrybailey.com, which has some thought pieces on there, but probably need to be more. I shall keep writing. I'll
link them all in the comments. Is the thing to say.
Thank you.
I will do that. Anything else on your mind, mate?
Anything else on my mind? No. Liverpool's lovely, isn't it?
It's great.
I'm going to go for a little walk before I go home because I've not been here very often, and that is all that is on my mind is experiencing Liverpool before I get back in my car and drive back to Manchester.
The docks, always worth it.
Follow some tourists around.
Yeah. Obviously Matthew Street, if you want to go down memory lane of the Beatles.
Yeah.
It's just a great city. And I say that as I'm not a native. I can't claim to be.
It's dipping in and out.
Well, yeah, but yeah, I would never claim to be a native, but it is a great city, and I think there's a lot going on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
If you did like this video, then there will be another one around there with another interesting person. If you've got this far, I'm sure you will find it interesting as well. Until next time, thank you very much.